All right, I'm Jason. I'm the co-founder and CEO of DocStock at Jason Nazar. This is Kyle.
Hi. How are you guys?
CRO of DYN. DYN.
Yep,
That's how it's
DYN,
pronounced.
yeah, that's how you say it. Yep.
I like it.
It's short for dynamic.
What's your Twitter handle?
KYork20.
What's your email?
Kyle@dyn.com.
What's your office phone number?
603-296-1530. I am the CRO. I'm in sales.
What's your social security number?
00366 93.
Social security number.
Boom.
Wait. Whoa.
Identity theft.
All right. So what were you doing before? What is this company all about? What do you do?
Yeah, so we are an internet infrastructure company. So does anyone ever actually heard of DYN? Because I'm always surprised. Nice. So we're an internet infrastructure company. We specialize in managed DNS and load balancing and email delivery, kind of like SendGrid, like back-end email delivery. And so it's all like the pipes behind your websites for performance and reliability. And a lot of people know it as DYNDNS.org, which was actually started at Worcester Polytech. Guys were basically created DYNDNS.org to do remote access back into their computers in their dorm rooms because your Comcast or your ISP would always change your IP address at home.
What were you doing before DYN?
What did I do before DYN?
Yeah.
I worked at a company called Whipple Hill. Anyone go to any prep schools? K-12 prep school? Where'd you go? That's all right. So, yeah, so basically the school, it was like an ERP for schools. So K-12 schools would do like attendance, report cards, grading. Beauty of that place, being a guy in sales, was that you learn how to sell to everybody. The teacher, John Battelle was a board chair. It was unbelievable. I sold to Scott Boris, the sports agent. So it's amazing who sits on the boards of these schools and who makes decisions about how to do grading or alumni relations or all that. So I spent about 7 years working for that company, Whipple Hill. And our CEO and one of our co-founders, Jeremy Hitchcock, we went to high school together. And he was looking for someone to run sales who was like his age and who, they had talked to a lot of consultants and really experienced sales folks and were really intimidated by the sales profession. And they wanted to bring someone they trust and someone they knew. And I was the 15th employee back in 2008. And now we're about 220 people. So we've grown pretty fast.
What part of the country are you from originally?
I'm actually from New Hampshire. Our office is headquartered in Manchester, New Hampshire. There are like 5 startups here from New Hampshire, believe it or not, proving you can start a company anywhere. I'm from there. I moved out west for that company, Whipple Hill. I lived down here in La Jolla and San Diego for a few years. They told me I could go west, and I said, do I have to go to San Francisco, or can I go live down south in the sun? So I spent 3 years living in San Diego running the West Coast region for that company. And then I got drawn back when I was getting married, and my wife was from the East Coast, and we decided where do we want to go, and we could buy a house in New Hampshire, and we're only 45 minutes from Boston. So it all worked out.
Cool. And then you're on a couple other boards, or right?
Yeah. So I'm on a board of a high volume email marketing company called Mill33, kind of going after like not quite the high end exact target, but not quite MailChimp. So trying to get like really high volume senders getting into the inbox, which is becoming an increasingly big problem. A company called TrendSlide, which is it's called customer behavior lifecycle monitoring. So it's trying to like monitor them from like pulling in third-party data sources from like Google AdWords or Google Analytics all the way through to like billing systems like Zora or Chargeify. So I like to get involved in a lot of other startups because this is my first time being a CRO. So I find that by helping a lot of other companies, I learn a lot. And hopefully it's reciprocal. Hopefully they learn something from me. And we're interesting because we bootstrapped the company from 2001 to October 2012. And then we raised $38 million Series A last October. So kind of random.
So talk about that revenue growth.
Yeah.
Can you guys talk about what your kind of revenue numbers are or range?
Yeah, so
from 2001, like how did each year progress?
Yeah, so basically they originally started as a hobby in '98. I always kind of leave that part out. So for 3 years they ran it as like a hobby. And it acquired about 40,000 users worldwide, many overseas. And in 2001 is actually when they incorporated and said we might have a company. Like, I wonder if we charge $20.
They had 40,000 users before they incorporated?
Yes.
So were they charging for anything?
No, it was freemium. Not even freemium. They didn't even know that didn't exist. It was free. And then it was donation based because they were like, well, it's like a community project. Should we keep this thing running? And they realized that like running it in their dorm room off their like tower PC was probably not very stable. So they got into a colo back then. And they actually put a donation button on the website and raised 40 grand in 2 weeks. And then they were on the hook. So that's like kind of why they incorporated, because they were like, well, how do we recognize that donation? And then it kind of went service-based, started selling the service as an annual subscription. We became a registrar. You could buy domains. You could do email forwarding, all these things. And the revenue really was like pedestrian, like up until, grew to about 2006, about a couple $1 million. And when I started in 2008, it was about $3 million. We finished last year at about 30, and hope to be north.
What were
40s.
the things you did between 2008 2012 to get 10 times yearly revenue growth?
A lot of things. I think the key one is I just spoke about eliminating the sales stigma. There's a stink to sales, right? People don't like salespeople. They've had bad experiences somewhere along the way being sold to in a kind of cheesy or slick way. I think what we did is really started building relationships with our customers, leveraging the users that at the time was now 3 million free users worldwide. And really, I think the smartest thing we ever did was align with like the vertical markets that most made sense for our services. So we said, well, whose websites can't go down, who can't go down from a DDoS attack, who need to have reliable, scalable, worldwide domain services. And it was, e-commerce, very easy, right? So we went out there and I tweeted Tony Hsieh and he tweeted back and we won that deal like 3 months later. We signed Twitter when Evan Williams paid $30 a year for our stuff, and they now pay a lot more. We went out there and won Audience Science, which was like a behavioral ad targeter, so we went into the ad tech space. So we picked verticals that were very obvious, like if you go down, your company's screwed.
What's the right, because the folks here are a little bit early on, what's the right time that someone should start working with someone like you guys?
Oh, yeah, we just talked about that. Well, we have services like all the way down for $30 a year, so I'd highly recommend don't buy your domain names from GoDaddy or Network Solutions and use like really crappy domain services. There's repeated outages all the time, and it's not good. So we have services for $30 a year. As you move up market, the enterprise services start at $200 a month. The right time is really when you have real revenue, real users, when it would really hurt to have an outage, I think, is the thing that we always like to say. If your users have a lot of pain when you go down and your company loses either reputation or revenue, it's probably time to look at a more robust DNS infrastructure. And then it's also like when you start making decisions about like what's behind, like where you're actually hosting your website, how you're serving content. So think about it like, you might be in a colo today, but you might be leveraging a CDN or starting to put some, different objects up in the cloud. Well, at that time when you want some diversity, you should think about it. But it's a very consultative process. It's not like we can call DocStock and get you guys to use it the day of, right? It really requires a lot of like consultative value prop selling. So it's unique.
How do you find the sales process into tech companies where sales is such kind of like a unholy evil beast?
Yeah, you got to first acknowledge that. I think if you forget that and you realize that we sell to network ops guys, system engineers, heads of technology and engineering, these guys really don't want to talk to salespeople. They don't want to be schmoozed. They don't need to be wined and dined. They just want to know how the service could potentially help them. And the key for what we do is we pimp out our customers left and right, So I've already rattled off a few, but we work with everybody from Tumblr
DocStock?
to WordPress to DocStock.
We just signed up with you guys.
February 21st. When I saw he was going to interview me, I was like, I think
They're
he used
for that, by the way.
Yeah,
They're
DocStock.
clapping for that. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
But yeah, literally, they signed on February 21st, and I just looked, and they're actually using it, which some tech teams take a little bit of time to implement. So you can give them a pat on the back when you get back.
No, we have this weird philosophy where we actually use the things we pay for.
Hey,
it's super weird.
We have some really high-paying customers. I'm not going to name them on the mic, but who've actually paid us for years. And sometimes people will buy our services almost as like an insurance, that if it's there just in case they need to go implement it really quick. And it's funny to me because for a lot of instances, you can implement this stuff in literally 5 minutes. So But for a lot, if you have a very complex infrastructure, someone like a Twitter is not being served out of one data center.
What are the whole suite of services, just really briefly, that you provide?
Yeah, so we provide managed DNS services. So that's domain name system. On top of the managed DNS services, you can do load balancing. So instead of buying hardware load balancers, you can actually route traffic to the East Coast, from the East Coast to the West Coast to Europe. You can even go down to the state level or province or country. So a lot of geographic traffic management and cloud load balancing based on DNS. And then the second level is email delivery services. So think about all the apps nowadays that automate email, whether it's shopping cart abandonment, whether it's receipts, whether it's password resets. More and more apps nowadays are automating the mail they send. Square, Box, Baby Center, these are clients of ours. So they're using us to send the mail and not have to roll their own SMTP servers and deal with it. We really specialize in the things that are like not sexy at all and are collecting dust in the data center, and you only think about them when you have an outage.
So of all the services you provide, these are a lot of folks here in very early companies, their own thing. What are the couple things they need to know in general advice that could trip them up, cause issues, problems?
Whoa. Yeah, I mean, I think really it's when you're starting to think about scaling, you got to think ahead. And I think a lot of times when people are scaling their infrastructure and their websites, they're creating their infrastructure for right now. Right? And they're thinking, oh, geez, we just signed a bunch of users, or we're doing a big ad campaign, or we're announcing this great partnership. And they're thinking about like in the moment, and they're not necessarily thinking like, where do we want to be a year from now? And it's hard to predict that, and you don't know when you're going to hit lightning in a bottle. But being ahead of that, I think, is what we kind of come in there and say, we're going to expose more knobs and levers to your infrastructure behind the domain name. All the IP addresses, all the way you host and serve content. And so you should come in and have a little bit more capacity and ability to build that into your systems. So people use our APIs, automate it. We work with a lot of like the Squarespaces, the WordPresses, the Tumblrs. You go get jason.tumblr.com. All that automatic provisioning of domain names and all that stuff. A lot of apps are doing nowadays, and that's all done through DNS. So,
and then on the email side, people are still using their own server, sending the email, but what exactly are you doing in the process?
Yeah, so we're actually like accepting that mail, we're throttling and queuing it up, and we have relationships with all the ISPs behind us to make sure that Gmail doesn't put you into their spam.
And do you charge on a per send basis?
Per send, yeah, it's
and
all
what's
scalable.
The range of the prices?
Pricing starts for that service. We have a $30 a year service. And it goes all the way up. Our biggest customer probably pays us, $20,000 a month. It's all based on volume. So, and there's some crazy economies of scale as you grow. You have to be a pretty big sender to get up that high. And it's the same thing on DNS. It's all based on traffic.
How many emails are those folks sending a month, would you say, or a day?
The big ones,
yeah.
It can get up into hundreds of thousands of millions of messages, tens of millions in the top end per day. So, I mean, imagine that, a lot of the types of mail that's trying to get into the inbox, if it doesn't get into the inbox, people can't see it. A lot of business models are based on engagement on these emails. So we're taking like what you can get with an email service provider like a MailChimp, and we're bringing it back into your app. So click-through rates, opens, hard bounces, soft bounces, ensuring that it all gets to you. And only specializing in that. I think that's the key. We're not trying to be AWS and have 30 infrastructure services. We're really, really focused specialists on the two services that we really focus on.
So how many of you here are working on your own startup or in a startup right now? All right, pretty much everybody. What's the best general advice you got for everybody here?
Yeah, how many are funded versus not funded? Funded? Bootstrap? So, I mean, I think there's a drastic difference. I mean, when we built this company, the last two startups that I worked in were both bootstrapped. So I was brought in kind of as like a revenue juicer. So like my stage in the life cycle, like I'm not even sure I have the stomach for like the founder type card, but I'm always brought in to kind of like help the companies get going. The advice I would basically give is advice that was once given to me. Be very honest, passionate, and persistent about your cause, because at the end of the day, no one's going to care as much about what you do and the problem you're trying to solve than the founders. And what you need to try to do is when you're hiring, if you can intrinsically pass that along to the people you hire so that somehow they find their hooks in your company or your work and treat it as their own, then you will be able to have that kind of iterative compounding success. And we're 55 salespeople now around the world in 3 offices, so it's become very difficult. Like, those are the frontline people representing the brand in an industry sales that isn't well respected or liked. In software as a service, subscription businesses like yours, it's about upsell, it's about new revenue, upsell revenue, and renewal. So you better be likable, or else you won't grow. And SaaS is all about, Yammer doesn't get the valuation they get, Box doesn't get the valuation they get, DocStock or DYN don't get the valuations we get because of the new customers we win. We get it based on the ones we keep. And I think that's the biggest advice I'd give people.
All right, let's go to audience questions. Do we have an extra mic? Do you have the law that people can use? No? All right, who's got questions? Over here.
Yeah,
do they have a
so
partnership
channel
agreement to sell through VARs?
So channel's weird for us because our average ticket price is about $500 a month. So the ability for the channel to make a lot of money off of us, and for us to continue to make the margins that we make and hit our kind of cost of sale metrics and is challenging for us. So a lot of our partner relationships are like integrated. So we're in like a lot of storefronts like Red Hat, Heroku, Engine Yard, like Media Temples here. So a lot of hosting companies. They kind of like, they white label us a lot, so it doesn't even look like us. And they look a lot like a customer of ours. Right now, our VP of sales and our head of partner sales were just at the channel conference in Vegas last week. So trying to figure out, like, should we use channel to get into federal or to get into the true Fortune 1000? We work with the LinkedIns, the Salesforces, the web enterprise, but are they truly like a Wells Fargo or a Pfizer or a J&J, or a Bank of America? So using the channel for specific purposes is the way we're thinking about it. But we've figured out direct selling, transactional sales model, close 5 to 10 deals a month per rep, keep on adding reps, scale leads, and we've done that really well. We haven't done channel well. I don't know if we ever will, unless I hire someone really a lot smarter than me.
Other questions? Going once. Going. You got it right there?
What do you think? Can you hear me?
Did Ron send you? Nice. What the hell type of question is that? Who's a tech guy? I have no idea what the hell you're talking about.
So go to a more general question.
Yeah. Well, talk to me after, you jerk.
So my question is, in terms of where you base the company, I understand yours is in New Hampshire. What do you think of the idea of being based in LA, like Jason or mine, or being out of Silicon Valley, San Francisco?
So the question is, what do you think of being outside of Silicon Valley running a tech company?
Well, I mean, most people don't know who we are, so there's a lot of challenges. We raised $38 million. It was the first time we ever got covered in any major tech blog. I mean, Jason Calacanis is on our board. He joined our board of directors. But he had never heard of us. I mean, I literally like blind emailed him and asked if he joined the board, and then he's like, "Wait, what? You do how much revenue?" And you're asking. He's like, "No one who's ever built a company this legitimate has ever asked me to be involved." And I found that pretty funny. So there's a lot of advantages. I mean, our cost of talent is a lot cheaper, but there's a lot of disadvantages. I mean, the first 2 years I spent at DYN, I've been there about 4.5. I was out here 3 times a month. So, you kind of have to be where your customers are, and the internet is owned by this area. I mean, it's mostly the West Coast and New York. So it's really about being where your customers are and how you do that. We have a 5-person sales office here. But they're a lot more expensive.
But to be fair, you sell into tech companies.
Yeah, we sell into tech companies.
Right.
Yeah.
If you start a consumer web application, your customers are everywhere.
Yep. I mean, I guess there's a lot of things. I mean, if you're looking to raise funding, the VCs want you close, right? We raised from a Boston firm, so there's a lot of different positives, pros and cons of both. One thing that we do like is we're definitely able to be an employer of choice and keep our talent. We are the place to work in southern New Hampshire, and a lot of our talent has been sick of commuting down to Boston, the 45 minutes in traffic. We're the same distance from Santa Clara to San Fran as Manchester to Boston. So a lot of our talent are people who've been going down to Cambridge or going down to Boston or Marlborough and want to be closer to home. So you got to play into your strengths, but there's definitely cons too. It's harder to get engineering talent, some of those things. ASN question.
Yeah.
Jeez.
What?
The ASN question.
Yeah. And then why don't we do this? We're going to break now. Any individual questions go here because these questions are starting to get more and more specific, like, what's your favorite pastrami sandwich, which is kind of weird. And then we're going to do the last office hour session of the day, 5 o'clock, with Angela, who built an amazing company, Deviant Art. You guys are all going to want to know it. At 5:10. We're going to do it at 5:10. If you're here early, then you're here early.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks, Jason.